Yeah, so for those of you who don't know me, my name's Mai. I've been working with High Noon for about almost 4 years, and I'm the women's program coordinator. Before I became the women's program coordinator, I started out as a participant it wasn't called Ascend yet, had a lot of success personally with the program. And so I started giving back, and now I'm here working with the women in the program. So today I'm going to be talking about sexual integrity, and that's going to be the focal point, but I think all the things I'll be mentioning will also broadly apply to what it means to have integrity in any area of your life. So first, I want to touch on, I think, some misconceptions that people have about what it means to have sexual integrity. And I think when people talk about sexual integrity, whether they have it or they don't, they talk about it in a sort of black and white language, like I have integrity or I don't have integrity. And that is a really narrow perspective. Like one way that people like to measure their integrity is by the streak. So like how long it's been since the last time that they've acted out, whether that's watching porn or masturbating. And that's only one tiny aspect of it. If by that definition, having sexual integrity means not making any mistakes, then that means that you have to be perfect. And no one's perfect. And sexual integrity isn't this thing that you either have, and once you have it, it's like something that you can check off on a list, but it's something that is always developing, and it's something that you're always investing in every day in one way or another. Every day you're going to be making decisions that either align with your values. That's what integrity is. It's doing what you say you're going to do, honoring your word, and living a life that aligns with your values. I just wanted to spell that having sexual integrity doesn't mean being perfect. It doesn't mean not making any mistakes. Mistakes are a part of the journey of developing integrity, and they're actually a really important part of that because we are able to learn from our mistakes and become better and better. What integrity is, it's living in alignment with your ideals, and specifically with sexual integrity, it's being clear about the purpose of your sexuality and building a lifestyle that supports that ideal. One analogy that I like to use to conceptualize integrity is that it's like a muscle or like fitness. So if you're out of shape and you want to get into shape, it's going to be tough in the beginning. Like when you're exercising your muscle, you're breaking down the fibers and then rebuilding them back stronger. So it means eliminating things that don't help you become healthier or stronger, and instead replacing negative habits with healthier habits. And in the beginning, it's going to be tough to go to the gym consistently and eat the right foods. But the more that you stick with it and the more that you work at it, the stronger and stronger you get and the easier it becomes. And eventually, once you get to a point where you're in shape, you don't suddenly stop doing all the things that helped you get to that point. At that point, it's about maintaining the maintenance. There's definitely a learning curve, and it's tough in the beginning, but it does get easier if you stick with it. The maintenance stage, that's when you're able to reap the benefits of all the hard work that you put in. And the same way, building sexual integrity takes continual effort. And it's not like once you hit a certain level, then you're done and you don't have to do any work, but you continue to make decisions every day that align with your values. The more you are in practice of living aligned with your values, the more natural it becomes. It just becomes the way that you live your life. You can have the tools to deal with the same challenges that you previously were helpless against. And once you reach that point, you're able to more easily embody the vision for yourself that you have worked so hard to achieve. So one example that I really liked, I listened to a few podcasts to prepare for this talk, and Sammy, our director, gave an example of what it meant for him to have sexual integrity. And so his vision was to be someone who is totally enamored by his spouse to the point that he doesn't have eyes for anyone else. His wife is like the sole recipient of his sexual energy. It's really important with sexual integrity, depending on where you're at in your life, whether you're married or you're a single person, to be really clear on what is the purpose of your sexuality. And so for Sammy, his purpose is to be giving of his whole self to his wife. And that's a vision that he said he's not perfect or 100% there, but that's something that is inspiring for him and that excites him. And that's something that he works towards every day. And so that's something I'm going to leave to each and every one of you to reflect on for yourself. What does it mean to have sexual integrity? What's the purpose of your sexuality? So now that we know what sexual integrity is, to live in alignment with our ideals and our values, the next thing that we'll be looking at are some important elements that we need to build that and to develop our sexual integrity. And so I'm just going to be hitting a few points, and this is not going to be an exhaustive list, but these are just some things that have stood out for me in my personal experience. And these are some of the things that we have talked about along the way during this program. So a lot of this will be review. The first thing is honesty and accountability. So in order to achieve any kind of change, you need both. You need honesty to assess where you're at and to see where you're at and see what it takes to get to where you want to be. And you need to be honest in order just to be kept accountable. And accountability is important to keep you on track, because we're going to make mistakes. It's not about whether or not we make mistakes, but what do we do? How do we learn from those mistakes? And how can we use those mistakes to propel us to move forward? And accountability is important to keep you from giving up on your goal and to keep going forward. Another thing is self-awareness. Anytime that we make mistakes, which we're definitely going to be making, it's important to reflect and learn from these mistakes. There's a level of self-awareness where you're behind yourself. Maybe you have a slip up and you're left wondering what happened, and you're kind of reflecting and figuring out after a slip has already happened, maybe what you might have been able to do differently to prevent that. And then the next stage of awareness is when you're moving with yourself. So in the moment, you're kind of recognizing your triggers, and you know that maybe what you're doing isn't going to maybe be the best decision or the wisest decision, but at least you're cognizant and aware of what's happening when it's happening. And then the next level is to get ahead of yourself. And that's where you know preemptively if you're edging, or if you know that you're in a vulnerable situation, you're able to think several steps ahead of yourself and make the decisions that you need to make in order to prevent yourself from having a slip or not making the wisest decision. So you're able to then set yourself up for success. So with every mistake, hopefully we're learning more and more about ourselves, what our tendencies are, and how we can act more proactively and preventatively, and not as much from a place where we're reacting to what's happening. Whenever we make mistakes, this is a really good opportunity to remember that, it's okay to make mistakes. And as long as we learn from our mistakes, these are actually opportunities to grow. Seeing mistakes as opportunities to grow and learn and become more self-aware is going to be really important to build your sexual integrity. Another thing is commitment. Maybe this is the most important thing, but if you're not committed, then it's going to be really easy to give up. And so commitment for me is getting back on the horse over and over again every time you fall off. And your commitment is really a reflection of how much you want. How important is it for you to become this version of yourself that you want to become? How much of a priority is your sexual integrity? And if you're faced with a challenge or a mistake, are you going to give up? Like if you have a slip, how long is it going to take for you to reach out to your accountability partner or reach out for support? Commitment is really important if you want to change in any kind of way. That's what you're going to need to keep going when it gets tough. The last thing that I'm going to mention is to stay connected to your support system. So one of our our mottos or catchphrases is that the opposite of addiction is connection. And we as humans are social creatures. And so we really thrive in relationships. At the root of any addiction is like a substance or like porn or masturbation to numb these difficult emotions. Something that we can do to kind of get ahead of that is to keep our batteries charged so that when we're faced with difficulty, it's easier to reach out for the support. If we already have full batteries, then there's less of a need to numb or self-soothe. everyone has a need to give and receive love. And the more consistently we can be connected to the people that we love and that we know love us, then there'll be less room ultimately for things like porn or masturbation to fill that need, which is really love. Yeah, the more connected we are, then the more easily it'll be for us to reach out for support when we need it. Those are just a few things. It's not an exhaustive list. Maybe you can think of something that maybe in your experiences helped you develop integrity. What has been an obstacle for you in developing your integrity, whether it's your sexual integrity or integrity in something else? And what is one next step that you can take, like becoming really clear about your vision, or like getting really clear about what the purpose of your sexuality is? Is it having more honesty or accountability? Is it learning more from your mistakes, or having a stronger commitment and prioritizing this in your life? Is it connecting more to your support system, or is it something else? Take some time in your peers to discuss this. And I hope that you can look back on the other talks and recognize that those are all really important pieces on your journey to building sexual integrity and just having integrity. I hope that it was helpful, and I hope you have a good peer share.